the blue zones. There are pockets throughout the globe where people live over 90 and some of them are over 100. And it's basically all lifestyle. And what's interesting, they know very little science, but they're living longer.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Houghton, and today we're joined by Dr. Jacko, a physician specializing in internal medicine, sports and regenerative medicine, preventative medicine, and longevity science. He is the author of Bamboozled, Duped, and Hoodwinked: Keys to Escaping the Tricks, Deceptions, and Half-Truths of the Medical Industry, which is a guide that empowers readers to navigate the corruption and misinformation in healthcare. In his practice in Ohio, Dr. Jacko helps individuals achieve optimal health and vitality beyond the limits of conventional medicine. In today's conversation, we are talking about effective medicine as a partnership between the patient and physician, and the importance of lifestyle and the impact of purpose on health. Dr. Jacko, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for inviting me.
I am so excited for listeners to learn from you. And I tried to stop myself from chatting too much before we hit record so that we're all it's a fresh conversation. Tell us a little bit about either what drove you to write the book or just your shift in perspective of how you're practicing medicine now versus making an assumption here, but how you were practicing out of med school.
Sure. Well, the book is basically an increasing amount of frustration over 35 years of practicing medicine. Now, the first 2/3 of my career, I mainly was dealing with athletes and middle-aged people who wanted to be active, as well as elderly people. And in that population, the focus on medicine is to help the patient achieve optimal function. And then the last third, I gravitated into the sick care model. And I just saw
So you went backwards.
I went backwards, but then I went back again. Yeah, I went backwards. And I saw a lot of shortcomings of the sick care model where the emphasis is primarily on medication, use of medications, very little emphasis on the foundations of health, such as exercise and diet, as well as stress management and proper sleep and those things. And then, since then, I have gravitated back to more of a wellness model over the last 3 years. I have a preventive medicine clinic that focuses on exercise, nutrition, longevity medicine. We have a fitness center, exercise a physiologist on staff, dietitian. So it's gone a complete 360.
Full circle, yeah.
Yeah, full circle.
Love it. I love it. I will say you're one of the rare ones who actually started out kind of focusing on function optimization, which is good. But I get you got there through the sports medicine kind of aspect.
Well, that really goes back to medical school. I was injured a lot. I played a lot of sports and I was hurt a lot. And when in my medical school training, I graduated from medical school in 1986. And as we were being taught things, I always looked at it from the focus of an athlete. And there are things that we do to the average person, if you will, that you would not do to an athlete. You wouldn't treat the blood pressure the same way. And so even back then, I was questioning a lot of things.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the book. I feel like you definitely have, and it's to me, it's spot on, but obviously strong feelings. Bamboozled, Duped, and Hoodwinked: Keys to Escaping Tricks, Deceptions, and Half-Truths of the Medical Industry. And right. I kind of understand the context a little better, that I could see the frustration had you been practicing in the sick care model all along. But starting with more of a lifestyle focus and then changing, I can imagine it was like, holy cow, this is not right.
Correct. That conversion back to the sick care model was really an eye opener. And then in intervening periods, there were so many new medications came out that I knew very little about. Yeah. So I had to educate myself, and part of that education process was sitting down and meeting with pharmaceutical reps to learn about their medications. And I kind of caught on to how they, shall I say, misrepresent some of the data to paint the best picture for medications.
Yeah. Well, and the business of medicine, right?
Right.
When you,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much a business. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but I think that has taken primary focus away from what we're really here to do, and that's to help, patients.
Amen. So, as you're practicing medicine now with that full, and I love what you guys are doing at your clinic where you are, to have a gym, to be able to go and really incorporate like true lifestyle medicine where people can literally come and work out and have the right people there to support them, I think is really cool. That's our dream for our clinic. We would love to be able to incorporate a little more of that into our clinic as well. I want to what are some, I've heard some of the things you said, and I was excited to talk to you about. When somebody goes to a typical Western doc, I'll even, since we're an autoimmune podcast, I'll say, rheumatology. If somebody's lucky enough to have, it's rare, even still, to have a rheumatologist who is, lifestyle focused. And I know that can be an uphill battle for people. What are some of, I know you mentioned exercise, what are some of the lifestyle factors that you believe are essential for people to incorporate into their daily routines?
Well, the biggest challenge I would say is proper eating. Exercise, it's relatively easy to get patients to exercise 3 or 4 days a week, but eating is a 24/7, 365 challenge.
Yeah.
And many of us are on a pro-inflammatory diet, which is something that you would want to avoid if you have an autoimmune or a rheumatoid problem. You certainly want to focus on more, in my opinion, fruits and vegetables, and also incorporate, particularly if someone has rheumatoid arthritis, gentle exercises to maintain joint flexibility and motion.
Yeah. I like that you say gentle. I've worked with so many people that are over-exercising. They may have, a handful of autoimmune diagnoses and I was there for a period in my journey too. They just didn't want to let go of that piece and didn't realize that they were really driving more inflammation by overdoing it consistently.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately for those with autoimmune disease, it's really what I find a trial and error. You just have to find
your body will tell you.
What's your load. Yeah, the body's unfortunately doesn't tell you sometimes until the next day.
Well, sure. But I mean, at least if you're then not ignoring it and adding on, that's kind of how we learn.
Right. But everything really starts with movement.
Yeah. Well, see, so true to your roots. Right. And our bodies are designed to move. Mm-hmm. And I really think that when, I don't know how many years ago it was when they came out with like sitting is the new smoking, but really, and it's kind of like eating, right? Like we really always have to be conscientious about, are we sitting too much? Are we moving enough? Are we, versus whether we choose to pick up a cigarette or not, which hopefully listeners are. But, it's this consistent check-in with, I get it sometimes because I work at a stand desk a lot. It's adjustable. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, shoot, now I've been standing all day and I should, move around more.
Yes, our ancestors didn't really have to worry about that too much.
No.
Most of us are very sedentary. We do have to, as you say, make a conscious effort to get up and move around.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just helps to have a schedule or some type of a program in place that reminds you to get up and move around every so often.
Yeah. Well, and now are you a wearables fan? I mean, I feel like.
I actually don't.
Okay.
I think it has a role.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes we get too driven by things. Like we have patients waking up at 3 a.m. to see if they're sleeping okay. Which
I
seems
have told people before, like, because people they get really, and I'm like, you need to just put that away and stop looking at it. But right. I think some of those things can be helpful, whether it's an app on the phone, if you're somebody which always amazes me, I encounter this a lot, though, people who don't drink water, right? Like, it's just not, it's so interesting to me that, like, it's almost like that, either someone's a good water drinker or they're not. Right. For creating the new habit, not relying on.
Correct. That's a good way. I think it's helpful in those early stages.
Yeah.
And it's similar to what I tell patients about eating. When we eat, we're always converting things back into calories. And I would say it's got to be more like learning a language. At some point when you learn a language, you got to quit translating it back into English, and you just have to appreciate what that language means in that language. So when you look at a plate of food, you just have to appreciate this is a healthy meal.
Yeah.
I got a good balance of fat, meat, protein, and carbs in there.
I love that. Like, food is nourishment, and it is kind of sad that somewhere along the way we lost touch with that in day-to-day life, at least in this country. And so, shifting that thinking back to, like you just said, like, really what's on your plate as nourishing your body, and whole real food, which is a whole nother.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too much processed food in our diets.
Yeah. So, but it's all, we're shifting. And so, hopefully.
Yeah. What I see patients being more aware of those things than maybe prior generations or even my generation. When I played sports, we weren't even supposed to strength train because the thought was when muscle bound you, and there was no discussion on pre-game meals or post-workout and nutrition or anything.
They used to do that. I remember, like, the spaghetti dinner for the
exactly
plates, right?
That's what we had.
Yeah. Well, we're not too dissimilar in age. But even back then, though, even though they didn't know as much and the focus was a little different, there was more real food. Even if it wasn't the best choices, it was at least made from real ingredients.
Right.
And I think that's a whole nother, that should be a part 2 book, because I believe it really is all connected to this, business of medicine being driven by a pharmaceutical company model is, to me, the same. It's like the body, right? It's interconnected with the food system.
Very much so. And some of it has to do with just the way we live life. Many times people don't have time to make their own, a homemade meal, and we're relying on restaurants and fast food to accomplish that.
And then I hear, I can't afford to, get pastured meat. And I'm like, wait a minute, you spend $10 on something they call coffee every morning. That's not coffee,
If you want something bad enough, you'll find a way to get it.
Yes, it's true. That is very true. I've heard you talk, I want to touch on, and then we're going to dive a little deeper into the book, but I've heard you discuss the importance of purpose in wellness, and I think it's really under discussed in medicine. So to share with listeners, what you've seen in your years of practice about sometimes, we look at a lab report, we're looking for the answer on a lab value, and I feel like purpose is often can be that driver of somebody getting well or staying well.
Well, when you have a structure, so I would say you have to know what you're willing to live for, and to some degree you have to know what you're willing to die for. We sometimes don't talk about that, but among my patients, I've seen those who have a very strong purpose, and it doesn't have to be anything earth-shattering or game-changing. Yeah, you don't have to save the world or the whales, but you do have to have some reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
And it could be simple. I recall a gentleman, back in the 1990s, he was overweight, had high blood pressure, but he had a manufacturing plant and employed 200 people, and he would walk about 4 miles a day. And just the fact that he had 200 people relying on him gave him a very strong sense of purpose. And in my opinion, it outweighs some of his bad numbers,
Habits.
if you will,
Right.
habits.
Yeah.
And then you see people who they retire, and then in 30 days, they die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them was a famous coach for the Alabama, Bear Bryant. He retired, and I think 30 days later, he died. And so you have to have a strong sense of purpose. And with that, I just think it helps you to get up in the morning, you're energetic, you can't wait for the day to begin. And all that spills over to other parts of our health.
Absolutely. Do you feel that purpose can change throughout life? Like you said, like not everybody has that. I'm going to save the whales,
Oh, for sure. Are you familiar with old Earl Nightingale? He was a radio personality in the 1950s. He discusses that he kind of breaks people into two parts. He goes, there's the goal-oriented person, and then there's the river or the stream person. And that's the person who, the river person is a person who at a very young age knows what they're supposed to do. They immerse their life in it. You could not imagine them doing anything else. And then and I would say I'm probably a goal-oriented person. You have a goal, you achieve it. You do something else, you achieve it.
Right.
But at some point, all those experiences kind of point to one thing. And for me, I think all my experiences in medicine probably enabled me to write the book, because I have maybe a broader spectrum. I've worked with surgeons. I see how they think. I was in preventive medicine. I see how they think. I did the sick care model. I see how they think. And so I think all those experiences just, kind of opens your eyes.
Right? Yeah,
exactly. Right.
Yeah. So I do think it's important for people to, as a health coach, we need to tap into purpose to create change, right? Because change is not always fun and it's not always easy. And so somebody has to find their why if they're not in touch with it.
Correct. Change. You may disagree. I think people have to change themselves, but they can do that by having someone like you bring some awareness to the situation.
Yeah. And
maybe ask them some probing questions that kind of gets them to reflect and look at their life. And it's, get them going in a direction that's healthy for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I want to feel better. It needs to be a little deeper than that.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if a patient comes to us, we'll ask them, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? And, weight loss. Well, I'll say, well, how much weight do you want to lose? It has to be, as you know, it has to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to tie a time frame to it. I want to lose 15 pounds in 3 months. Those persons are more likely to achieve that than the person that just says, I want to lose some weight.
Sure. Yeah. Or I just want to feel better.
Right.
Yeah. I would love for you to share with us some of the big, and I know there's a lot, a lot of ahas in the book. But I want you to share, if you could share 3 things with listeners, to inspire them to go get the book.
Okay. Well, there's probably 3 or 4 points that I try to really hit home. Number one, patients are only getting about half the information they need to make the best decision for themselves.
Yes.
And a lot of that has to do with the way, particularly drug studies, are couched. For instance, if you hear that a drug will lower your risk of heart attack by 33%, that's pretty impressive. What you're not told is that it takes 100 people to be on that medication for 5 years for one person to avoid the heart attack.
Gotcha.
So you get the half truth. I also make the point that medical science is different than, say, physics or math, where there's one right answer. Mm-hmm. A lot of the medical literature contradicts itself.
Yes.
And so you have to take that into account. Also, there's also a profit or a financial agenda behind some of the studies. Certainly, in my opinion, the pharmaceutical company would love you to be on every medication possible for as long as possible. I also make the point that this concept of evidence-based medicine has flaws. And my opinion, the medical establishment kind of picks and chooses when it's going to follow it.
Yeah.
And then I also raise the question, how much does medicine really benefit? It really doesn't add that much to longevity, although it certainly improves quality of life.
Gotcha.
Right. And most of the increase in lifespan is more related to clean water, sanitation, use of antibiotics for infectious disease, and really less so than interventions that on our part.
Yeah. I mean, I always say, God forbid I need emergency surgery. I'm going to a Western trained surgeon. Like it's like you said, it's great for acute sick care. And I think so much of this chronic illness epidemic that we're in now is because we have gotten so far away from how we were created to live. Mm-hmm. We were talking about sitting, standing, moving earlier, right? Like it's all the things. Food isn't food. The toxin load, and it's this whole bundle. And it is interesting because our clinic is also focused on longevity, and things that work, to increase quality of life, and mm-hmm. I talk about health span, like maybe it's because my maternal grandmother is the only relative I have that lived a long life, but the last 10, 15 years of her life, she wasn't really, she was physically alive, but she didn't participate in life. It was not good. And so I'm like, no, I don't want to be here. I don't need that extra 10, 15 years of just laying in my bed. That's horrible. Right. And so the health span piece.
Correct. In the book, I talk briefly about the blue zones.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, these are pockets throughout the globe where people live over 90 and some of them over 100. And it's basically all lifestyle. And what's interesting, they know very little about science, but they're living longer. So,
right.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of it's diet, a lot of it's activity. They're not exercising per se, but they're just active throughout the day.
Right. And which I think is really important for, again, back to that. How have people lived that's what's special about the blue zones is they're still living. They have purpose. They have community. Mm-hmm. They have the movement. They have the real food. They have all those innate supporters of health.
And they view the elderly as wise and sages that can still contribute and that they can still listen or learn from.
Yes. Which
we tend to discard the elderly at some point.
And I think that back to when you were talking about the retirement, right? I think having a society where elders are revered and have something to contribute gives them purpose, right? Sure. So they have continued purpose throughout their life. And so no wonder they live longer. Like but more importantly, better,
and they appear to be living a slower pace of life. We're all guilty of it. We're all on this treadmill, and for some of us, the treadmill's really going nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about the concept of evidence-based medicine. Mm-hmm. So it just made me think of a pet peeve of ours is the terminology, standard of care.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk a little bit about, I'm just making assumptions now that you're on the same page with me. Okay. How do you think about when you hear standard of care?
Well, the standard of care in part is based on expert opinion and based on scientific studies. Okay. Now, if you read, there's a Canadian physician by the name of David Sackett. He's kind of considered the father of evidence-based medicine. And he would say it's not to be cookbook medicine. It doesn't take away the patient's choice.
Yeah.
Basically, you look at the highest level of evidence that applies to that particular patient. And we have kind of gotten away from the original meaning of that term, of that evidence-based medicine. And here in the United States, it's really become very much cookbook medicine. It really matters very little who you see. If you're seeing an employed physician by a hospital system, you're going to get the same advice most likely, which was very different than years ago when physicians had different opinions. And as you as a patient, you would gravitate to someone that was aligned with your thinking.
Yeah.
And I also think it's a control mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I we think, to me, when I standard of care, I believe at this point, and I know it evolved, is really driven by insurance companies. And I don't want an insurance company making my medical decisions where if something is, because you practice some regenerative medicine, longevity medicine, things that are out of that box. And it's like, well, we don't want standard of care. We want better than standard of care. We want personalized precision medicine.
Which is what we're supposed to be doing. But in reality, we are practicing population-based medicine. And we're doing it because the insurance companies, they're hedging their bets. Gotcha. So they don't mind paying for a medication, even if 99 people don't benefit from it, because it's less expensive as long as one person benefits and avoids that heart attack. So we're putting everybody on medications. You will benefit, but at the same time, the insurance companies save money by that approach. Gotcha. And so I think that is part of what drives this use of over-prescribing medications.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I want to touch on, you talked about, because I look at your book as empowering for people, right? It's about empowering patients, giving them perhaps a different perspective. I think a lot of people will come away with a different perspective perhaps than they had before they read the book. But you talked about patients making informed decisions. Let's talk a little bit more about tips you may have for patients to advocate for themselves, because I still see, I work with so many people who just do what the doctor said, and it's not a conversation, and they don't feel like they're getting options. I've had patients with, Crohn's fired by their GI doctors because they won't take the medication and they want to try a lifestyle approach first.
So I was always thought and taught that it's really a partnership between the doctor and the patient. We have gotten away from that. And it's I'm the doctor, you're the patient, you're going to do what I tell you. So more and more patients are finding that increasingly frustrating. Now, as a patient, you may not realize it, but you have access to all the medical information that I have access to. Now, you may not understand it, but you could at least access it. And if you have something and you have a question about it, you take it in to your doctor and ask them to clarify some things. But I would always encourage you to do your own research, particularly on the major things. You're right, doctors, if they are challenged, they don't want to be challenged and they get offended by that. So you have to find, kind of a polite way of bringing up some of these topics. It's true that they will fire you if they perceive you as non-compliant.
Yeah.
Now,
which to me means it wasn't a good match anyway.
Correct.
Right.
So, all the physicians are traditionally or conventionally trained. I don't know what the numbers are. There may be 2 to 5% of us are willing to go outside that box.
Yeah.
So I would encourage patients to look for someone that has gone outside the box.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is they still have all the traditional, conventional means, but they've added things to that, whether it be acupuncture, nutrition, diet. They have more tools in their toolbox to treat you.
Yes.
If you have...
And you can find that within... often, and sometimes not, but not everybody can step out of the insurance-based system, but there are plenty of open-minded, even if they're not guiding you. You just need a physician who will work with you on the approach.
You could do both. You could still have your insurance-based physician and go outside the system for select things. One, probably the most common one would be hormone replacement therapy, because surprisingly, that's really not taught in conventional medicine.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's probably the most common area where you can go outside. You can go on the internet, look for functional medicine and anti-aging medicine, what have you, and you can combine physician directories or find a physician in your area that has some additional training.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you just want to use your insurance, you're going to have limited options because you're only going to get what the insurance companies will cover. So there may be times where you have to be willing to pay out of pocket.
Right.
And that's a big resistance for many patients. So in my current model, we have, it's cash, and we have a membership model. And I have some wealthy patients from the prior practice, and they can afford what our service is, but they just want to use their insurance. And
we experience the same. It's interesting. It's for us, where we're located is geographically a little different. But we've got ranchers, farmers, teachers. We've got people there's a pastor from Nicaragua who will bring parishioners. Those are the people that are willing to, and yes, we have a blend also of people who don't blink to pay for, but often just our experience is very similar, that it's often the people who can totally afford it. That's not the barrier. It's mindset.
Yeah. Some of our patients, they're in their trades, and, once they get to 50, they start breaking down. So they embrace our model more so than some of, and sometimes, they have to really struggle to afford what we do.
Purpose.
But they're more right. They're driven by their purpose.
Yeah.
The other people that the model appeals to are the young entrepreneurs.
Yes. Well, and I do think, which is exciting for me, like my kids are all in their 20s, and it's fun to see that. I feel like we're, bigger numbers in the younger entrepreneurial sector of, people like, and I think it's because some of them have watched the breakdown in their own family members. And entrepreneurs tend to be self-thinkers. And so,
right. Yeah. I like those types.
Yeah. I think that is who's drawn to, I'll call it wellness medicine, which is really what it is.
Correct. Yeah. The term wellness sometimes a little hard to, we use it so often, sometimes it's hard to know what it means.
Yeah.
But I like patients who like to think. They look at things more from I would say a common sense approach, and very few doctors do that. We're just so we got the blinders on most of the time, and we're just kind of doing what we've been taught and what we've been told.
Yeah.
And sometimes I learned a lot of things from patients. And
It's fun when patients come in with a question that you're like, I don't know, let me research that. But I think even within the insurance-based system, to me, it's a red flag if a doctor won't have a conversation with you about something. Even if it's out of their typical box. I remember when I first found out about functional medicine and was just starting to heal from some of my autoimmune struggles. Had a ways to go, but got the needle moving a little bit. And my physician I told her, I said, I'm going to look for a functional medicine doc and all the things. And she was like, please share what you learn. Like, she was great.
Okay, good.
Very open. And that's where I get frustrated. But then, like you said, it's a relationship, it's a partnership. And so I would love to see the day when patients feel truly empowered to say, that approach doesn't feel right for me.
Right. Not about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a patient. She wanted to start hormone replacement. Her GYN lives like 2 doors down from her, and they've been friends. And she just really got mad at her for wanting to consider that. And then so she saw her primary care physician who was okay with it, just didn't feel comfortable doing it.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah, and that's good. You need to know exactly. But she was open to it, and then somehow she gravitated to our practice.
Yeah.
But you have two examples there. You have the physician who's somewhat open-minded for her primary care. Then you have the GYN that was totally closed-minded.
Yeah. Well, in mine, I've talked about it on the podcast before. It's been 5 years now. I had a hysterectomy with oophorectomy. And when I came in for my follow-up, the gynecologist from surgery, the gynecologist said, well, you stopped your progesterone, right? Because you don't have a uterus anymore. And I'm like, so you want me on unopposed estrogen? And I just was like, thank you for doing an amazing job with the surgery. So sometimes it's better when they just say, I don't do that. And patients just find the right person.
Well, your story is real common among the GYNs when a woman no longer has her uterus. You don't need progesterone.
And I'm like, but I have a brain and a heart and all these other organs. I would like to keep healthy.
Yeah. The way I got into the hormone, it was probably about 2008. I was doing more sports medicine. I had a 6-year-old gentleman come in. I was treating his knee. And at the end of the visit, he goes, hey, doc, why is it okay for women to get hormone replacement, but not men? And I said, well, that's a good question. I really don't know. And then that led me to research it. Yeah. And then I ended up doing it myself. So.
Yeah, which is amazing. And that's how my husband got into, it wasn't called functional medicine then. It was his family medicine practice and knew, again, had to be a better approach. And that was when hormones were fringe.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah.
Well, we're getting there. Things are changing with all the other health professionals, the naturopaths, the acupuncturists, and just the internet. People are being exposed to more of these other health professionals. So I think it's going to lead to a more integrative approach.
Absolutely.
But I think for physicians, we talked about what the patients can do. Physicians, I think it would be wise to consider getting outside the insurance model. Now, very difficult to do, and I'm sure your husband's probably had some struggles, but it's not easy.
That was a long time ago.
Okay.
Well, what he did was he sold his practice and started fresh, and he had people that followed, but what he found was it was difficult to change model within that existing practice, and it just seemed easier to just start over.
Right.
And so, but I think it goes back to purpose and values, and like you said, the self-thinkers, the questioners, as far as prioritizing, like where do we spend our dollars, and how much money is declining as you age going to cost you versus finding the right physician and prioritizing good healthcare.
Right. So if economic production is creating value by way of a product or a service, when we go look at our chronic disease management, we're really not creating that much value.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
We do so on the acute care, but not the chronic care.
Right. Right. Which is, again, I think that was what the system was definitely created for.
But I would, for a young physician to come out of training, you're used to kind of being poor. I would just say, go into a more of a membership model right out the start.
Yeah. That's the wisdom from your perspective now. I'm not calling you old, by the way. I didn't mean it that way.
No, 35 years of wisdom in one sentence there.
It is amazing.
The unfortunate thing, physicians are getting frustrated and they're leaving. Unless the system changes, it's going to be bad for all of us.
Well, and I think, it always needs to be kind of a critical fail for a system to get recreated. But I have had the question of like, who would want to be, who would want to put themselves through medical school, go into all of that debt to enter the model as it currently is now? It's horrible.
There's one physician online community on social media, and they did a poll. 70% of the physicians are discourage their kids from going to medicine.
Isn't that
And
sad?
when I see, it's very sad. And when I see parents whose kids are going to college, the ones that are going to medical school come from non-physician parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that comes from physicians. So
Interesting. Well, and it is. It's just because of the current situation and the current model. And I think as more functional medicine grows, cash practices grow, this other approach gets more traction. I forget because, I work in the clinic and I'm surrounded in this beautiful, wonderful model. And the only reminder is if I take a different route home, because we kind of live in the country, and it's when I take a different route home and I see all the lines around the fast food joints, and I remember like, oh yeah, I live in a bubble. We've made progress, but there's more to gain for sure.
Well, there's nothing better than being around like-minded people who love what they do. They're energetic, they're passionate.
Yeah. And
it just spills over into everything. And the patients sense that as well.
Yeah. Well, and they feel better, like it's, again, the relationships are priceless. I personally, from my journey into functional medicine, that's my purpose. My passion is helping people take charge and really do understand, I don't know that I'll be alive to see the day a rheumatologist tells somebody newly diagnosed, that they can heal. I'm sure there are some, but in general, like I would love for nobody ever to be told what I was told, which was, expected decline. We'll manage it the best we can. Right. Like, no.
One thing I've been using on some of my autoimmune patients is low dose naltrexone.
Yeah.
And I actually had a patient, she's a rheumatologist, and she was quite excited about it.
Good. See, and that's the best is when we talk about this all the time, treating other providers, right? It's the butterfly effect because you just got buy-in, and I guarantee you she'll be incorporating that into practice.
Yeah, she was the patient told me that the rheumatologist was very excited that someone was willing to do that.
That's great.
Yeah.
I
know.
We
are making it. Right. We're chipping away slowly.
Yeah, we're getting there. So, well, I so appreciate it. And is Amazon the best place to find the book?
Amazon and also Barnes and Noble.
Okay, nice.
And then I do have a website. It's JackoMD180.com. So the 180 is, means a change in direction. And
I love it.
That,
I was smiling when I first checked out your website. I was like, I like it.
Yeah. There's about 1,100 articles that go back about 12, 13 years. And probably an article, roughly every 5 days.
Amazing.
Right.
It's amazing. And you are still seeing patients.
Still see patients half time.
Okay, nice.
And that's so our practice website is wearethearmory.com, and that's ARMORY.
Nice.
And sounds like a military thing, but we have a medical clinic, a fitness center, we have a sports development center, a recovery center.
Great. It's
amazing. Hopefully one-stop shopping.
I love it. I think that we should have those everywhere. I really do. I think it's part of the solution for sure. Listeners are trained to lean in at this point because they want your tip for one thing that they can do starting today to improve their health.
Well,
it's 35 years. Come on, you've learned. So you got something for us.
Focus on eating properly and do your research.
I like it. I know.
And trust your instincts too.
Oh, that all really, really amazing. So, and I'll even reverse it. Trust your instincts first.
Yeah, I agree. Now that I said it, I agree with you.
I think so much of it. Have you seen this in practice? women, and it may even go back to that doctors know all kind of mentality that we were raised with. Sorry if I just let the secret out of the bag, that doctors are human too. But women are taught to be polite, and I feel like so many women that I work with, part of their illness journey has been not trusting their instincts and not, because sometimes it's not polite to. So do you find a difference in your male versus female patients, or not so much?
I would agree with what you say. I mean, I think on one hand, everybody understands their body, but women are more in tune to their body than men are, per se.
Gotcha.
And I think what women sometimes feel, they may be embarrassed or don't want to bring up because they're going to be shot down by the doctor.
Gotcha.
It's all in your head. It's not real. Yeah.
I think trusting your instincts is just gold. I mean, really, and it sounds so easy to say. It takes relearning sometimes for people that have kind of pushed that down.
Right. And for women, they have raising kids. They have to. There's a lot of instinctive habits or action that go into that. So I think there's just an intuition that women have that maybe men don't have.
Okay.
And we're just
they're not tapped in.
Or tapped into, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
no,
I agree with that. I had a lady just yesterday, or was it just maybe 2 days ago, who really had a lot of good questions, and she was just getting really frustrated because she kept running into a brick wall, the traditional doctors. And almost everything she said she wanted to do, I agreed with completely. I said, yeah, I think you're on the right track. Spot on, right.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and that's why we do what we do. So it's wonderful. Sometimes it takes that level of frustration for people to then go find, the right provider. So I'm glad she found you.
If you search, you will find.
Yep. And I bet she slept a lot better because she felt heard.
She looked a lot more comfortable leaving the office than what she did when she came in.
Amazing. So I'm going to, once again, the book is Bamboozled, Duped, and Hoodwinked: Keys to Escaping the Tricks, Deceptions, and Half-Truths of the Medical Industry. And it is an industry. It's a great read. It's really, it gives you a lot to think about. And I think you do a really good job because, again, it's research phase. It sounds, there's a lot of passion in the title, but you back it up. And I know as you started to research for the book, it just kind of reinforced the need for you to write the book.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you uncovered these things, it's like, do I keep this to myself or do I have an obligation? And I felt the obligation.
Well, we're glad you did, and I appreciate your time and your wisdom, and encourage listeners to check out the book. And Amazon gives you a nice, you can preview some of it too if people are a little I don't know. I would say for sure check it out. I think that the way we're going to change the state of illness in our country is for people to be educated about what has been driving medicine and how we can do it differently. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate it.
For everyone listening, remember you can get the show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.